Hey guys, this is Bear Loves Film, Bear Clark here, and today I want to have another look at Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, the extended cut. Now, this has been out obviously for a couple of years now, and I wanted to look at it again as the dust has settled. Bear in mind that we've just had Justice League out, which has had quite a mixed review, shall we say. So, in March 2016, Batman vs Superman came out, and I was particularly excited about it. Now, I like Zack Snyder's style of films. I absolutely love Sucker Punch. I thought 300 was very, very clever. Watchmen, I think, is a very underappreciated classic film. I do know Zack's got a tendency to have style over substance, but I was still very, very stoked. And let's face it, Superman and Batman in the same film with Wonder Woman turning up as well. What could be better, eh? Well, lots apparently, because Rotten Tomatoes gives it a stinking 27% critic rating and only 63% for audiences. Now, it cost around $250 million to make, and it took in around about, I think it's $874 million. So you could say it's successful, but when you think about how much money went into it, and there was a huge budget on the advertising, easily $100 million. There's some trades are saying that it was up to $170 million spent just on the advertising alone. So there's an awful lot of money. Warner's really bet the farm on this film, and it didn't quite work the way they wanted it to. Now, what I wanted to do with Batman and Superman is not go through it frame by frame and go through it and criticise it. I didn't want to say, well, yes, look at the Martha scene, isn't that ridiculous? And, you know, Batman kills, Batman shouldn't kill and everything else. What I wanted to do was look at it in reflection. Now that we've had time to settle down, we've seen Justice League. Now, Justice League is very notable before the tonal shift. Now, obviously, with Zack Snyder doing some of the film, Joss Whedon doing the rest, we knew it's going to be some tonal shifts, but there's obviously some course correcting going in there. Now, whether you think it should have been some course correction or not is open to debate, but they've obviously looked at the criticism for Batman vs Superman, with the Superman being too dark, too grumpy, and I would definitely agree with that, because one of the probably the biggest issue I had with Batman vs Superman was the tone. The fact that we had a similar tone for Batman and Superman, which I thought was totally wrong. In fact, they doubled down on being wrong, because even Jessie Eisenberg, as he's playing Lex Luthor, actually said, you know, day versus night, you know. It should have been like that. Batman, older, he's spent years and years fighting crime in Gotham. It doesn't feel like he's got anywhere. He's obviously at some point had Robin as a partner who's been killed by the Joker. Whereas Superman is, or should be, a beacon of hope. Now, it's really funny to me that in Justice League, Batman, or Bruce Wayne at the time, references Superman and says he was a beacon of light, a beacon of hope. You know, it's just like, what? This is the guy that you spent years developing plans how to kill, the guy you despised, the guy that you were willing to give your life to kill over everything else, and all of a sudden he's this beacon of light. He wasn't a beacon of light, he was far from it. He was being called to account by the establishment, by the American government, etc. You know, are you really a hero? But in Justice League, that was all thrown out the window as, oh no, he was a beacon of light, and the only reason we've got crime now is because Superman died. Yeah, right, okay. Did you actually watch the previous film? So the tonal shift was a real problem. The look of the film was beautiful. I didn't like how desaturated a lot of it was. It wasn't as bad as Man of Steel. I mean, Man of Steel, yeah, you might as well watch it in black and white telly, really. It's so desaturated. They've taken so much out of the colour. You have a Superman where traditionally we've had this, you know, truth and justice and the American way sort of thing. Bright blue, bright yellow, bright red. Doesn't lie, you know, he's something for everyone to aspire to. Literally, figuratively, you look up in the sky and you look up to Superman. Not only because he can fly, but also because of what he stands for. Whereas Batman is a dark vigilante, hidden in the shadows. It almost made sense, because you could always understand that because they're two sides of the coin, you could actually argue that Superman, being righteous, would think that Batman is nothing but a common vigilante, and you could see that Batman, who thinks that all the injustice in Gotham is caused by people who think they're better, people who think they can steal, can cheat, can lie, can rape, can do everything they want, and he has to stand up for them. He has to fight that corruption. He has to fight people who think they can do whatever they like, and there you have the absolute epitome of somebody who could do anything they like, a superhuman alien that flies, that can't be killed. So there is a great contrast there. So in that respect, yeah, the story could kind of make sense. What happened is, unfortunately, is they tried to make it more complex by trying to make Lex Luthor the architect, the person behind the scenes who's moving all these pieces around. And I think by doing that, they diluted it. What they did was they actually took two very opposite superheroes who could easily be understood to butt heads, and then just make them out to be pawns. To me, I think it watered down the actual possible rift between these two superheroes, and it did the film no favour. Not helped by the fact that Jessie Eisenberg's over-the-top rendition of Lex Luthor was, well, it didn't work for me. I know it worked for some people, but it certainly didn't work for me. The Lois Lane in Batman vs Superman is not the hard-edged sort of Margaret Kidder type from the original Superman films. You know, she constantly has to be saved. Is it 3 times I think he saves her? You know, she finds something that's needed, then she throws it away, then she has to find it again. Diminished Lois Lane's character, I think, far too much. She was very much in the old Superman films, not so much in the comics. I didn't read that many comics, to be fair, but certainly in the original Superman films, she was very much an equal in many ways. She was sharp, strong, independent woman, whereas this Lois Lane is supposed to be this hard-hitting journalist, but in actual fact we basically see her as a damsel in distress every single time she's around, and I think that's a disservice to the character. I also think it's a disservice to the actress, who's very, very good. Obviously the length of the fight at the end was not particularly satisfying when you look through a 2.5 or in the extended cut 3-hour long movie, and you probably have about 12 minutes of punch up, but you know, I can understand that works as well. If they'd stopped it at the end of the punch up between Superman and Batman, if they managed to resolve their differences there and then, you could have almost finished the film there. But then they had to tack on the death of Superman, which didn't work for so many different reasons. It didn't work because we hadn't grown to love and respect this Superman. This Superman was a grumpy, scowly git. He seemed to resent the fact he was a superhuman, like the rest of us would give our souls to become. He had all these abilities, all these strengths, a beautiful woman that loved him, and he was constantly grumpy, constantly moaning about it. He never smiled. He was really, really an unlikable character. When he died, did we really care? I don't think so. One of the things that Warner's could have done was could have kept all that a secret, and it could have been a really hard-hitting thing for the hardcore fans, at least, to actually see Superman die. It was like, oh my god, I wasn't expecting that. But of course, because they'd shown Doomsday in the trailers, anybody that has even a passing reading or understanding of the Superman and the Superman comics and some of the big comics in his history knows that Doomsday was going to kill him. And Doomsday, oh my god. It was basically, they borrowed a CGI orc from Lord of the Rings. It was awful. I don't know with Warner Brothers. I keep hearing somebody like John Campea say, Warner's, they're a clever company, they're a clever company. Are they? Are they really? Are they really so clever that they put out trailers, the last trailer of which basically gave you the entire plot of the film? Was that clever? Is it now clever to say that they were going to do a Nightwing film and a Joker film and a Gotham Sirens film and another Suicide Squad film and a Joker's origin film with Joaquin Phoenix, rather than Jared Leto? Really? Are they a really clever company? Because I'll be honest with you, it seems like a shit show to me. And then they looked at the negativity with Batman vs Superman and tried to adjust some of it by retconning in Justice League, but it just felt forced and awkward, and it was almost like we're referencing the previous film but we're also ignoring it, which is kind of bizarre. They also looked at criticisms of Jessie Eisenberg as Lex Luthor and said, yeah, okay, you don't like him, but we're still going to use him. Yeah, fine. And what are they going to do? They're going to make a new league of their own, an Injustice League or whatever. Going to get a band of bad guys together, like they did with Suicide Squad. That was a great film, wasn't it? A 2-hour video game cutscene. Yeah, crap. So Batman vs Superman, I think when we look back at it now I've seen Wonder Woman, which I love, and now that I've seen Justice League, which I don't, then I've rewatched the extended cut of Batman vs Superman, and actually I think it's a lot better movie than I originally thought. I've actually come to like it. There's things in it that I don't like, but I can almost forgive it for what it's done, whereas before I would have trashed it. Whereas when it first came out and I watched it, and then I watched it in fact I think I watched it 3 times at the cinema, and I would have said, my god, that is an absolute train wreck. It is such a mess, and it still is a mess. It's tonally inconsistent, it's narratively, it's a complete bloody mess. Some of the ways that they portrayed Superman to be such a grim, boring git was awful, but then they also gave us badass Batman. Now, whether you agree with whether Batman should kill or not, and I personally think he shouldn't, because most of the time in the comics he didn't. It was his one rule, as the Joker said, you know, I'm going to make you break your one rule in The Dark Knight. He was brilliant, and Ben Affleck was brilliant and is brilliant as Batman. But, of course, when you see him in Justice League, watch Justice League and watch Batman vs Superman and see the 2 types of Bruce Waynes you've got there. And I think you'll agree that Batman vs Superman Bruce Wayne is the more realistic one. He is somebody that's been through the mill, who is just... he's lost, and he knows he's lost. You know, he's fighting a losing battle, and he's doing what he can. You know, he knows he'll never be normal. He'll never have a normal life. He'll never settle down, get married and have kids. He'll die on the streets, down in a gutter somewhere, taking on a bad guy and losing. You know, he knows what his fate's going to be. Whereas Justice League, he's like, oh, I can tell jokes and I'm light, and Batman, who I hated so much, is this brilliant beacon, and he's more of a human than I am. He's like, oh, bullshit. So for me, I'm looking back on Batman vs Superman, and where I would have given it easily a C- before, I'm now changing that to a B+. So if you haven't watched Batman vs Superman for a while and you've got it in your collection, I'd urge you to try it again. Have another watch once you've seen Justice League. Look back on it with fresh eyes and see, is it really as bad as you or maybe other people thought it was, or was it actually not that bad a film at the end of the day? Let me know in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon.